You're listening to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, created to help you succeed in your educational journey. Learn more at baremetalcyber.com, where additional prepcasts, books, and training materials await. Let's get started. Incident response programs exist to provide structured, repeatable processes that guide organizations from the moment a potential breach is detected through containment, notification, and full recovery. Their objectives are threefold. First, to contain threats quickly so that damage does not spread. Second, to ensure compliance with regulatory and contractual obligations, including notification timelines. And third, to restore operations in a way that preserves trust and limits financial or reputational harm. Programs are not ad hoc. They are carefully designed systems with defined playbooks, trained personnel, and continuous testing. For exam candidates, the key concept is preparedness. Regulators expect organizations to demonstrate they had an actionable plan before an incident, not after. Scenarios may test whether response programs can be improvised, with the correct recognition being no. Recognizing this emphasizes that resilient outcomes depend on structured, well-rehearsed incident response programs that balance speed, compliance, and accountability. Incident taxonomy and severity classification provide the foundation for triaging events and deciding escalation paths. Taxonomies categorize incidents into types such as malware, insider misuse, vendor breaches, or physical theft, while severity scales assess impact on confidentiality, integrity, and availability. A low-severity incident may involve a contained phishing email, while a high-severity case may involve exfiltration of regulated personal data. These categories ensure that response resources match the seriousness of the threat, preventing both underreaction and overreaction. For exam purposes, the key idea is proportionality. Incident classification determines whether legal, executive, or regulatory escalation is triggered. Scenarios may test whether all incidents require regulator notice, with the correct recognition being no. Only breaches meeting statutory definitions require notification. Recognizing this illustrates how taxonomies ensure clarity in decision-making, enabling organizations to prioritize containment and communication based on real-world impact rather than speculation. Roles and responsibilities must be clearly defined before incidents occur to avoid confusion during crises. An incident commander oversees the response, coordinates tasks, and ensures accountability. Legal teams advise on regulatory implications and privilege, privacy officers assess data protection impacts, and operations leads manage technical containment and recovery. Without role clarity, response efforts can stall or overlap, leading to missteps such as delayed notifications or evidence loss. For exam candidates, the key lesson is governance during crises. Responsibility cannot be improvised. Scenarios may test whether a single department, such as IT, can handle incidents independently, with the correct recognition being no. Recognizing this ensures candidates appreciate that incident response requires cross-functional coordination, with leadership roles documented and rehearsed to keep teams aligned under pressure, enabling fast, defensible decisions during critical events. Playbooks and runbooks offer different but complementary tools. Playbooks provide high-level templates for handling scenarios such as ransomware, insider threats, or vendor breaches. They outline decision points, escalation triggers, and communication flows. Runbooks provide step-by-step procedures for specific tasks, such as isolating endpoints, capturing forensic images, or disabling compromised accounts. Together, they create both strategy and tactical execution guidance. For learners, the key concept is distinction. Playbooks set the framework, while runbooks ensure precise execution. On the exam, scenarios may test whether playbooks alone provide sufficient detail, with the correct recognition being no runbooks are also required. Recognizing this emphasizes that incident response depends on both structured decision-making frameworks and operational task guides, ensuring teams know not only what decisions to make, but also exactly how to implement them effectively and defensively. Detection sources are diverse, requiring organizations to integrate monitoring tools with human awareness. Security information and event management systems aggregate logs and alert analysts to anomalies. Endpoint detection and response tools identify suspicious activities on workstations and servers. User reports, often from employees who spot phishing emails or unusual system behavior, remain critical. Combining automated tools with human vigilance creates layered detection that increases the chances of identifying incidents early. For exam purposes, the key concept is integration. No single detection method suffices. Scenarios may test whether user reports alone constitute adequate detection, with the correct recognition being no. Recognizing this ensures candidates understand that detection requires both technology and training, with systems and staff working together to provide early, reliable warnings that allow response teams to act before damage escalates. Evidence preservation is a central requirement for both forensic defensibility and legal compliance. Once an incident is suspected, response teams must preserve logs, system snapshots, and communication records, ensuring integrity through documented chain of custody procedures. Failure to preserve evidence can weaken investigations, limit legal recourse, or undermine regulatory trust. Forensic integrity requires that evidence is collected systematically, documented carefully, and stored securely. For exam candidates, the key terms are preservation and custody. Scenarios may test whether evidence can be altered during response activities, with the correct recognition being no. Recognizing this highlights that defensible incident response depends on careful evidence handling, ensuring that investigations remain credible in regulatory reviews, litigation, or insurance claims, and that organizations can reconstruct exactly what occurred, when, and why. Containment, eradication, and recovery phases represent the technical backbone of response programs. Containment stops the spread of threats by isolating systems or disabling accounts. Eradication removes malicious code, closes vulnerabilities, and eliminates persistence mechanisms. Recovery restores normal operations by rebuilding systems, validating data integrity, and re-enabling services under secure configurations. These phases align directly with business continuity goals, ensuring operations resume quickly without reintroducing risks. For exam purposes, the key concept is phased response. Scenarios may test whether eradication can occur before containment, with the correct recognition being no, containment must occur first. Recognizing this illustrates how incident response balances urgency with discipline, sequencing activities to maximize safety, minimize downtime, and ensure systems return to production in a secure, verified state. Legal privilege strategies protect sensitive investigations and communications from disclosure. Involving outside counsel early allows organizations to cloak forensic reports and communications under attorney-client privilege. Coordinated communications ensure that internal messages do not inadvertently waive privilege or expose liability. Legal oversight also ensures notifications align with statutory definitions rather than premature disclosures. For exam candidates, the key concept is privilege management. Scenarios may test whether privilege applies automatically to all incident documents, with the correct recognition being no, legal involvement must be deliberate. Recognizing this highlights that incident response is not just technical but also legal, requiring careful strategy to preserve confidentiality, manage liability, and balance transparency with defensible communications that withstand regulatory and litigation scrutiny. Notification decision frameworks guide whether, when, and to whom notices must be sent. Regulators, affected individuals, and business partners may all require different notifications under different timelines. Frameworks include breach definition analysis, data sensitivity considerations, and potential harm assessments. They also weigh contractual obligations that may impose stricter requirements than statutes. For exam purposes, the key concept is structured decision-making. Scenarios may test whether all incidents require notification, with the correct recognition being no, only breaches that meet statutory or contractual thresholds require it. Recognizing this emphasizes that notification is not guesswork but a regulated process that must be documented, justified, and executed carefully, balancing transparency with compliance and minimizing unnecessary alarm where obligations do not apply. Breach definition analysis requires comparing incidents against applicable state laws, contractual commitments, and regulatory frameworks. State breach laws often define personal information narrowly, while contractual definitions may be broader. An incident involving encrypted data may not trigger statutory obligations but still require contractual notifications. For exam candidates, the key concept is contextual interpretation. Scenarios may test whether encrypted data always constitutes a breach, with the correct recognition being no. It depends on statutory definitions and whether encryption keys were compromised. Recognizing this illustrates that incident response requires nuanced legal analysis, not assumptions, ensuring that breach decisions are defensible under multiple obligations and align with both statutory text and contractual language. Forensic investigation scope determines how deeply incidents are examined. Investigators may analyze logs, capture snapshots of compromised systems, and reconstruct timelines to understand attacker methods and scope of impact. Accurate forensic work supports remediation, informs notifications, and provides defensible evidence for regulators and litigation. The scope must balance thoroughness with speed, ensuring investigations do not delay required notifications. For exam candidates, the key terms are scope and reconstruction. Scenarios may test whether forensic investigations can delay breach reporting indefinitely, with the correct recognition being no. Recognizing this ensures candidates understand that investigations and notifications must proceed in parallel, preserving evidence while still meeting statutory timelines and consumer protection obligations. Executive board and stakeholder communications are crucial for coordinated response. Executives must be briefed quickly to approve resources and make strategic decisions. Boards expect updates as part of their oversight responsibilities, particularly for material incidents. External stakeholders, such as partners or investors, may require tailored communications. Cadence is key to little information creates uncertainty, while too much detail can overwhelm or create liability. For exam purposes, the key concept is structured cadence. Scenarios may test whether boards can be informed only after resolution, with the correct recognition being no. Recognizing this highlights that governance during incidents requires timely, accurate updates, balancing operational urgency with the transparency expected by leaders and external stakeholders whose trust is critical to recovery. Disaster recovery integration ensures that incident response and continuity plans align. Restoring systems requires coordination between IT recovery teams and incident responders to ensure data integrity and security. Recovery is not just about uptime, but about restoring operations without reintroducing vulnerabilities. For exam candidates, the key terms are alignment and validation. Scenarios may test whether restoring systems automatically means recovery is complete, with the correct recognition being no. Data integrity and security must be validated first. Recognizing this illustrates that disaster recovery and incident response are complementary. Recovery gets systems running, while response ensures they are trustworthy, closing the loop between business continuity and privacy accountability. Metrics such as mean time to detect, MTTD, and mean time to respond, MTTR, provide measurable indicators of program effectiveness. Lower MTTD values mean threats are identified quickly, while lower MTTR values mean containment and recovery are executed efficiently. Tracking these metrics allows organizations to identify weaknesses and drive continuous improvement. For exam candidates, the key concept is performance measurement. Scenarios may test whether qualitative lessons alone suffice, with the correct recognition being no quantitative metrics are expected. Recognizing this emphasizes that regulators, boards, and auditors expect organizations to monitor and improve response performance with data-driven insights, proving that programs evolve toward resilience. Tabletop exercises and simulations validate the readiness of incident response teams. Tabletop exercises are discussion-based walkthroughs of scenarios. testing decision-making and coordination. Simulations, by contrast, involve live technical drills, testing whether controls and runbooks function as expected under real conditions. Both approaches reveal gaps in training, procedures, or communication, allowing organizations to refine their programs. For exam candidates, the key concept is rehearsal. Scenarios may test whether exercises are optional, with the correct recognition being no. They are essential to validate readiness. Recognizing this highlights that programs cannot assume effectiveness without testing, as real-world stress often reveals weaknesses hidden during theoretical planning. Post-incident reviews capture root causes, lessons learned, and opportunities for improvement. Reviews examine what went wrong, what worked well, and what controls must be upgraded. Documentation of lessons learned supports accountability, demonstrating to regulators and boards that the organization not only responded but also improved. Control upgrades may include new technologies, revised policies, or expanded training. For exam candidates, the key concept is continuous improvement. Scenarios may test whether incident response ends with system recovery, with the correct recognition being no. Programs must incorporate lessons learned. Recognizing this ensures candidates understand that resilient organizations treat incidents as catalysts for strengthening governance, embedding iterative learning into their privacy and security programs. For more cyber-related content and books, please check out cyberauthor.me. Also, there are other prepcasts on cybersecurity and more at baremetalcyber.com. Ransomware incidents follow recognizable threat patterns that incident response teams must prepare for. Attackers often begin with initial access through phishing emails, exposed remote desktop ports, or compromised credentials. Once inside, they use lateral movement to escalate privileges and spread across systems, seeking to identify and disable backups before triggering encryption. The final stage involves encrypting files and displaying ransom notes demanding payment. For exam candidates, the key lesson is sequence awareness. Defenders must detect early stages like phishing or lateral movement before attackers reach encryption. Scenarios may test whether encryption is the first step, with the correct recognition being no. Recognizing these patterns ensures that organizations can align detection tools and training toward the earliest warning signs, making containment possible before business-critical data is locked and operations are disrupted by full-scale ransomware execution. Double extortion has become a defining characteristic of modern ransomware campaigns. Attackers no longer rely solely on encryption. They often exfiltrate sensitive data first and then threaten to publish it if ransom demands are not met. This creates dual risks: operational disruption and reputational or regulatory harm. For exam purposes, the key terms are exfiltration and notification. Scenarios may test whether exfiltration without encryption constitutes a breach, with the correct recognition being yes. Recognizing this highlights that double extortion changes the notification calculus. Even if systems can be restored from backups, stolen personal information may still require disclosure to regulators and individuals. Organizations must prepare for both dimensions, ensuring their incident response programs address data exfiltration as much as technical recovery. Backup resilience is one of the strongest defenses against ransomware, but only if backups are properly protected. Offline backups disconnected from the network, immutable storage that prevents alteration, and regular testing of restore procedures all ensure that data can be recovered, even if production systems are encrypted. For exam candidates, the key concept is resilience. Scenarios may test whether untested backups count as a safeguard, with the correct recognition being no. Recognizing this emphasizes that backups must be validated regularly to confirm integrity and usability. Simply maintaining copies is insufficient. Organizations must be confident that restores can occur within acceptable recovery time objectives, preserving both operational continuity and regulatory commitments to protect personal information against loss. Payment decision frameworks provide structured guidance for whether to pay ransom demands. These frameworks consider legality, such as sanctions laws that prohibit payments to designated entities, insurance policies, business impact, and organizational policies. Payment does not guarantee decryption or prevent further extortion, making it a last resort. For exam purposes, the key lesson is structured evaluation. Scenarios may test whether ransom payment guarantees safe recovery, with the correct recognition being no. Recognizing this highlights that decisions must involve legal, executive, and law enforcement input, ensuring compliance with laws, avoiding prohibited transactions, and aligning with organizational values. Frameworks ensure decisions are documented and defensible, reducing the risk of ad hoc, crisis-driven judgments under pressure. Law enforcement engagement is another crucial component of ransomware response. Agencies such as the FBI, Secret Service, or international partners can provide intelligence, guidance, and sometimes technical assistance. Engagement also fulfills insurer and regulatory expectations, demonstrating good faith cooperation. For learners, the key terms are coordination and transparency. On the exam, scenarios may test whether law enforcement must be informed only after ransom is paid, with the correct recognition being no, they should be contacted early. Recognizing this illustrates that engaging law enforcement strengthens response credibility, ensures compliance with public obligations, and may reduce future risks by contributing to broader intelligence sharing efforts that track and disrupt criminal groups targeting multiple organizations across industries. Data breach scope evaluation is essential after ransomware or vendor incidents. Organizations must determine what personal information categories were exposed, whether the data was encrypted, exfiltrated, or altered, and how many individuals are affected. Scope analysis directly influences notification obligations and remediation services. For exam purposes, the key concept is precision. Scenarios may test whether ransomware automatically implies a data breach, with the correct recognition being no. It depends on exposure and statutory definitions. Recognizing this ensures candidates appreciate that scope assessments require forensic analysis and legal interpretation, balancing urgency with accuracy. Incomplete or exaggerated notifications can erode trust, while underreporting can lead to regulatory penalties. Public communication templates provide a controlled, pre-approved way to address incidents transparently and accurately. Templates include placeholders for describing what occurred, what data was affected, what steps are being taken, and what individuals should do. Having these prepared in advance avoids hasty or inconsistent messaging that could confuse or alarm stakeholders. For exam candidates, the key term is clarity. Scenarios may test whether ad hoc messaging during incidents is acceptable, with the correct recognition being no. Recognizing this underscores that effective incident response includes communications planning, ensuring public statements are factually accurate, legally vetted, and aligned with harm reduction goals, maintaining trust during periods of crisis. Vendor incident scenarios introduce unique complexities because organizations must rely on third parties for visibility and evidence. Contracts should require vendors to notify quickly, cooperate fully, and provide forensic evidence access. Without these provisions, organizations may struggle to meet their own regulatory obligations. For learners, the key concept is dependency. Vendor incidents extend accountability to external partners. On the exam, scenarios may test whether vendors are solely responsible for notifications, with the correct recognition being no controllers remain accountable. Recognizing this highlights that incident response programs must integrate vendor cooperation into their frameworks, ensuring organizations can still comply even when incidents originate outside their direct systems. Downstream notification obligations arise when incidents cascade across controller, processor, and service provider roles. For example, a processor suffering a breach must notify its controller, who then may need to notify regulators and individuals. These cascading duties require contracts to specify notice timelines and cooperation. For exam candidates, the key concept is chain accountability. Scenarios may test whether only the party directly affected must notify, with the correct recognition being no roles dictate duties. Recognizing this highlights that incident response is not siloed. All parties in the data chain have obligations, and successful programs must anticipate how upstream and downstream entities coordinate to meet statutory deadlines. Credit monitoring, call centers, and remediation services often accompany notifications to affected individuals. These services help mitigate harm by giving individuals tools to detect fraud, ask questions, and regain confidence. Providing them demonstrates good faith and can reduce litigation or reputational damage. For exam purposes, the key terms are remediation and support. Scenarios may test whether offering monitoring is always required, with the correct recognition being no. It depends on risk. Recognizing this illustrates that while remediation services may not be mandated in every case, they remain strong signals of accountability and consumer care, showing organizations take the impact of incidents seriously beyond regulatory minimums. Cyber insurance policies often play a significant role in ransomware and vendor incidents. Policies may trigger coverage for forensic investigations, legal counsel, breach notifications, or even ransom payments, provided policy terms are met. Insurers typically require prompt reporting and may mandate use of panel providers for forensics or legal work. For exam candidates, the key concept is policy coordination. Scenarios may test whether insurance covers all breach costs automatically, with the correct recognition being no. It depends on policy scope and conditions. Recognizing this emphasizes that incident response plans must integrate insurance obligations, ensuring coverage is preserved by following notification and coordination requirements exactly as specified. Technical hardening after incidents is a core part of remediation. Common upgrades include enforcing multi-factor authentication, implementing stronger network segmentation, and expanding endpoint monitoring. These measures address vulnerabilities exploited during the incident, reducing the likelihood of recurrence. For exam candidates, the key concept is improvement. Scenarios may test whether recovery ends with system restoration, with the correct recognition being no hardening must follow. Recognizing this demonstrates that resilient programs use incidents as catalysts for systemic upgrades, embedding stronger defenses so that lessons learned are translated into concrete improvements, not forgotten once operations resume. Vulnerability management often accelerates following incidents, as organizations seek to eliminate weaknesses that attackers exploited. This includes patching systems quickly, tightening configurations, and revising patch management schedules. Prioritized patching based on risk scoring ensures critical vulnerabilities are closed first. For learners, the key terms are prioritization and acceleration. On the exam, scenarios may test whether routine patch cycles suffice after incidents, with the correct recognition being no response requires urgency. Recognizing this illustrates that post-incident remediation demands accelerated vulnerability management, demonstrating diligence to regulators and proving to stakeholders that vulnerabilities have been systematically identified and eliminated. Threat intelligence integration strengthens detection and response by leveraging insights from external feeds, law enforcement, and industry sharing groups. By tracking attacker techniques, indicators of compromise, and emerging malware variants, organizations can tune detection systems to catch threats earlier. For exam candidates, the key concept is anticipation. Threat intelligence converts external insights into internal defenses. Scenarios may test whether intelligence is optional, with the correct recognition being no, it is expected. Recognizing this shows that incident response is not static, but continuously improved by external collaboration, enabling proactive detection and faster containment when new ransomware variants or third-party threats emerge. Vendor remediation governance ensures that third parties implicated in incidents take corrective actions. This may include audits, contractual penalties, or offboarding if deficiencies persist. Organizations must verify closure of vendor remediation steps, documenting milestones and requiring evidence. For exam purposes, the key concept is governance of partners. Scenarios may test whether responsibility ends with vendor notification, with the correct recognition being no remediation must be enforced. Recognizing this highlights that accountability extends across vendor ecosystems. Organizations remain responsible for ensuring partners remediate deficiencies, maintaining defensibility, and protecting personal data, even when risks originate outside their direct control. By embedding structured playbooks and extending incident response programs to cover ransomware and vendor scenarios, organizations create resilience against two of the most common and damaging threats today. Playbooks ensure clarity of action, ransomware preparedness provides technical and governance safeguards, and vendor integration ensures accountability across ecosystems. For exam candidates, the synthesis is clear. Resilient outcomes depend on preparation, coordination, and continuous improvement. Recognizing this principle emphasizes that effective incident response transforms unpredictable crises into managed events, preserving compliance, trust, and operational stability, even in the face of severe disruptions. Thanks for tuning in to the Bare Metal Cyber Prepcast, your trusted source for cybersecurity news and insights. Remember to subscribe at baremetalcyber.com so you never miss an update. And visit cyberauthor.me for best-selling cybersecurity books that equip you with expert knowledge. Until next time, stay secure and stay vigilant.